Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to EduTALK. We're actually on the final week of August, this August month, and wrapping up and getting into it's actually almost close to fall in September. We have about a month left in summer. Um, welcome to EduTALK. Some of us have started school already. Some, if you're in like the southern part of America, you have started school already and the northern part we haven't started yet. People are going back out. I know in New York, students are coming out the first week of September, and Dr. Barker has started already recently this week. So we are going to talk about like we're looking at the idea of social emotional aspect of the curriculum. Social emotional areas in school normally they don't get the same overall um the overall attention as academic planning. And so we want to highlight that, Dr. Barker and myself, highlighting areas in this field of social emotional tendencies of students to check in, and even staff as well. How are we taking care of our emotional health and our social health? And how are we taking care of other people's social emotional health in schools right across the globe? Um, yeah, so that's where we are. Dr. Barker looking slick as usual and leading with integrity and well, conscious leadership, probably I should put, right, Dr. Barker?
Yes, 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 yes. Happy teachers getting ready for the start of the year, yeah?
Yeah, it reminds me
Very happy.
of Dr.
Summer
Barker.
is over and we finally get a chance to see the kids again. The entire summer, you know. So very happy to be back in home and very happy to reconnect.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah.
And you have new people coming in too. So some students are coming in from different schools to check in with those students, and even teachers as well.
Yeah,
Appreciate
well, to be fair, I haven't had any teacher new this year really. Um,
that's wonderful. Maybe you have to share the secret of retention.
Yeah, and it's something that I find that in my years of working, I tend to be able to keep my staff, tend
Yeah,
to. That I really, it's something that I would say I know what I'm doing, but it's not like it's a science that I master. It's just more a matter of trying to build relationships and allow people to feel secure that
maybe
I'm
that's
looking
a
out for them.
sign.
But yeah, it's not a thing that I had to deal with this year. And in
Yeah.
most of my posts, even when I left my job in Muscat, I was the only one who left. Everyone stayed.
Wow.
Like when I said I was leaving,. Everyone had already committed to stay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in many ways, I think most times I've kept my team together and, get a chance to build them. So
It's very good. It says a lot about you, though, Dr. Walker, to big you up a little bit. Because normally people rally around the leader and say, well, if you leave, I'm leaving, and so on. But what it seems like you have done is to build a leadership around the culture of the school and not yourself.
yeah, I mean,
Very,
I want to. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff reading about, I try. Obviously, it's more of an art more than a science, but there's some science.
yeah.
There's some science to it. I mean, the way I look at it is, my role is to serve my teachers as much as my teacher's role is to serve my students, right?
Hmm.
So if I serve them and they know that they're being served, sometimes that helps. It's
Yeah.
not perfect, but so I've tried to be of service to them. As much as my role is to lead, my leadership is through the way I serve, provide a servant approach to them. So
Yeah.
um,
Very
that's
good.
the way that I think about it. But next year I might lose 5. I don't know. You know what I mean? But the
Yeah,
point
yeah.
is that something I've noticed that people don't just get up and go. They're gonna go because. But yeah, and new students. My school is the type of school that will receive new students every year, not because of any reason except that most of the people who come to my school are type of people who have um, jobs that
Mm.
end after a certain number of years, and so they have
Yeah.
to go back home.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people are be transferred to another branch in another country, you know. So we do have that, not for any reason. I mean, our retention is quite good
Yeah.
again, and very good for an international school. So
That's very
it
good.
gives us a chance to work with the kids and build connections with the kids, you know, rather
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. So
Yeah. We have about anywhere between 10 and 13 students every year in middle school that we get from elsewhere. And we don't have space, but we're really populated, very, very populated in New York here. So I understand the idea, and we don't really have, I think we got about two new teachers this year. Um, so in middle school, so we we're doing pretty well with retention. Usually people leave when they're about to retire, so it's pretty good, pretty good. Dr. Barker, what because we grew up with tough teachers, we don't really experience this social emotion. Like, if they say social, they're thinking about playing or running around with your friends out there, or go talk to your friends out there, leave us alone as adults, go talk to your friends. And then emotions, we never really tap into this idea of incorporating emotions in our journey as students, and then let alone for teachers and administrators, we um we just find that it's difficult, to transition from, oh, we didn't get that, and why do we have to incorporate that, to the idea of, oh, we need to incorporate social emotional aspects in our school environment because students need it, first of all. And then we realize, leading up to the pandemic, that adults actually need this too. So why not start the school year with something like that, right?
yeah. Well, school is about education, but ultimately school is about relationships. You know, nothing gets done without relationships. Nothing. You
Yeah.
know, so the truth is, while we want to teach them the content, it doesn't happen without relationships. And so the whole idea of social and emotional, I think, is intertwined in that. So I don't know how you escape it if you want to set up a good school. You have to be consciously, intentionally um, working at developing stronger and stronger relationships, fostering the connections that make it happen. And that's a hard work. That's hard work because you
Yeah.
don't control people. So the most you can do is do the things that should lead to connection and then see how it settles, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Do-
mean,
Would you
I
refer
mean,
to
I
them
talk
as
about the
staff?
time when we were growing up. The best teachers were very, very good. While they were stern, they were very good at building connections.
Yeah.
That was like their trade, really. There's a saying that said the kids don't care how much until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true for teachers. Kids really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's very
And
true.
I know many teachers when I was growing up who knew that. They might not have been able to repeat that phrase, that quote, but they knew that in their actions, that they showed care. They showed that. And kids eventually trusted them because they cared. And so they were doing social and emotional without the name tag on it. They were doing the idea of people being ready, the readiness you need for school, mentally as well as cognitively.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, here's what that's very, very, very profound. And here's what I got to pertaining to that. When I thought of social emotional skills that we need to start schools, and I did some research in it, and it talks about soft skills, the soft skills that people need to relate to one another. And they're important to collaborate in a work environment like the school. And this has to do with students and the teachers on a whole. And this is what they say, Dr. Barker, self-awareness, to be aware of yourself. So we can start off in our school to get people aware of themselves, responsible decision making, that we care about the decisions that we make, so we don't go off the rail and make bad decisions intentionally. That we try to be responsible when we make decisions. Relationship skills as well, self-management, and then the other ones that we normally would refer to when we think of emotions and social. We talk about confidence, and here's one: conflict resolution, empathy, integrity, some things like perseverance, and the big one, leadership. So what you just said, it makes total sense with it as it relates to the soft skills that we all need when we're getting into school environments and trying to decipher how do we navigate this environment. But it also, when you're starting something, you get anxious about it. And every summer, a lot of our teachers tend to be anxious in going back to work. You know, students are like that too. Like my daughter just started middle school, sixth grade in America here. And she said to me when I was about to the weekend before school started, she said, I'm so excited leading up to the weekend. I'm so excited. I can't wait to start middle school because I was so tired of elementary school. And then as it reached Saturday, Sunday, and then the Monday she should go, she said, Daddy, I'm really getting nervous. I can't believe I'm nervous so much. I don't know what to expect on the first day of school. And we had to do a little bit of activity sitting down in a pretentious class, what the teacher would say to her, and so on in middle school, and get her to adjust her emotions around the idea of transitioning to that new environment. And I tend to get that too, going back into school and finding out that, oh, we have a bunch of things that we need to complete, or we carry over from the last year and we need to pull some teams together to accomplish these goals. It's a little bit frustrating and also scary to some degree that I personally have to beef up some level of energy and confidence and maturity to take on this task or these tasks
Uh,
even at the beginning of school. What do you think about those?
no, no, I think we're certainly in alignment on these things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough to deal with. Do you find that students are more they are, as you go on throughout the years and get more experience, do you find that you have to cater to students more than you cater to adults in the school in terms of their social and emotional skills, trying to get them to be, I wouldn't say more mature about the way that they handle stress or anxiety, but get them to you check in with them and help them to navigate this the environment and their own emotions.
It is a combination, as I said, the way I look at it is that this is about relationships and the needs manifest themselves in different ways,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So, is it, how do you approach this? Is a lot of it is instincts, your instinct, what's the correct thing to do? I mean, some students who are having challenges need a firm hand. Some students who are having challenges needs a very, very soft hand. Some people need different doses of different things in different times. It's a skill set, it's not a science.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of it is hot, meaning it's happening in a moment, and you need to say the right phrase, the right words to dissipate situations, help people feeling so secure, trusting. I don't know if it's very different for adults compared to kids. It's the same.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to feel valuable, feel valued, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, in every conversation, in every human exchange, people have a desire to be valued. And
Yeah.
you want people to be listening. You want people to be responding. You want people to be saying things that show that they understand what you're saying and understand where you're coming from. If you're dealing with a problem, a feeling, you want people to acknowledge the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
them to do that. They don't, and you don't need help.
Mm.
What you need is an understanding that people understand that your feelings are genuine. And then you might be able to say, again, you want the to be empowered to solve that problem yourself, not for someone to think they can talk you down, change. So
Yeah. Yeah.
with parents, it's a genuine attempt to understand what is the cause, what is the stone in their shoe,
Mm-hmm.
not an assumption. You don't want to assume.
Yeah.
And that can only happen with questioning, creating open lines, creating constant communication, a commitment to constant communication, a willingness to be wrong
Mm-hmm.
about the thing, open, very open-minded. And the truth is, if you genuinely care and you learn the language of care, then you can get your way past most things. You can. Not claiming any massive success, but one thing I can claim is that in every failed attempt, I do learn from it and I try to learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a challenge. That's a challenge with those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's an art, less than a science. So adults need the same like kids. Everyone wants to be valued, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I talk
Do-
with kids when they come to me. I do try to understand why did you go about it this way? Is there, because ultimately it's a learning experience for them, but it's a learning experience for me because each child represents a different approach.
Mhm.
You can't assume that because you try this with one child, it's going to work with this one. No, you have to listen. You have to see. You have to go with the instinct. What's the next question? What's the next thing? Do they need silence? There are times I'm in a meeting with a kid and it's just silence.
Yeah.
It's awkward for some people, but then someone will talk first.
Mhm. That's very true. You know, the structure that you use, you normally use this in workshops where you check in with, and these are adults that you have done workshops with. You check in at the beginning with them. How are you feeling? Like when you do your workshop on Zoom, you have this Mentimeter that you say, hey, drop with a Wordle or something, a survey or so, drop in the chat how you feeling, respond to this survey question.
Feeling powerful, man. Feeling is a very
Yeah,
90% of things that you see happening. There's a feeling,
yes,
a positive or negative feeling. And if you don't, in my view, if you do not acknowledge the feeling, there are people who get things done without any acknowledgement of feeling.
yeah, yeah.
But they do that by seeking a kind of loyalty or leading through a kind of fear, right?
Hmm.
It works if you get the job done and that's what you're comfortable with. Um, I certainly know that I'm not comfortable with an environment where there's conflict all the time. Just not
Yeah,
comfortable. But there are plenty of people who are. I mean, we have seen many leaders who don't mind. There's a book that I used to read called Reframing Organizations by two writers. I'm trying to remember the name, Bowman and Deal. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right. Bowman and Deal has a book called Reframing Organizations. And they talk about four frames by which organizations can be looked at. We think about lens frames, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the lens in which they can look at. And in order for you to understand it, they use four, I'm going to say metaphors to describe each of the scenarios in one of them. One of them, they describe the framing of the organization can be like a family.
Hmm.
And in a family, everyone looks out for each other. There's a lot of empathy. There's a lot of sensibilities, responses to feeling and helping people feel comfortable. Um, there's an understanding approach to it. And you'll find there are organizations like that. You know, you're going and you're feeling down, people will be like, how are you? Or da da da. They
Right.
also have the other framing, which is called a factory, where people have clear roles. No one steps out of line in terms of roles. They're expected to follow the rules. And it's almost like a factory environment where it's run by rules and procedures. And yeah, that's really the way it works. So it's accountability is high, culpability is high. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
within that, but very much a factory type experience, you know, policies, procedures, get things done. And you can work, a school that is framed and organized, you can tell. You walk into a school and everybody just, the rule is, and that's said every day. And every so often, a directive is released about how we do things. While you might work in a family environment, there are more maybe open meetings, more asking you, what do you think we should do about this,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The third framing, they're not in any order. They're just
Yeah.
like, but number three is the jungle,
Mhm.
where in that organization, everybody feels like they're competing against each other for hegemony. Who is best? Who's strongest? There's a
Yeah.
battle for resources. You can tell when you ask for something, the boss might say you need to talk to so and so and see if they will give it to you, right? People are always jostling who gets the best room, best position, best
Yeah.
students. There's a lot of that. And it's framed in that way because the school might or the organization might decide this is how we want it to work, right? They
Mhm.
want it that way. They want the people to compete because if they're competing, maybe the best of the best will come out or you get more out of competition. So you have, I mentioned the family metaphor, the
Mhm.
factory
The
metaphor.
factory
You
and
have
the.
the jungle metaphor or the arena. And then
Mhm.
you have the temple, right? And the
Mhm.
temple metaphor talks about rituals and like when you hear them talk about you go to this in this them call them fraternities and
Fraternity. Mhm.
those kind of things. You have
Yeah.
little rituals and you have a school where the things are done in a specific way and
Mhm.
there are procedures, but there's a lot of celebration and stuff about what we're doing. And
Mhm. Mhm.
but you know, maybe it's mission driven, and people talk about the mission all the time and
Mhm.
this is how we do things here. There's a certain way that we do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So when you're in those organizations, you can notice it. You will know if you're in a family organization or a factory or a jungle or a temple. You'll know.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You'll just know. You feel it. You land and you just know.
Yeah.
Right. And that framing allows you to step back and say, if this organization is a temple, what do I need to do in order to survive here?
Mhm.
Do I acknowledge and be sycophantic, support, build structures in my sphere that aligns with this, right?
Mhm.
So these are big questions. So one thing that anyone needs to do is kind of, so the idea about leaders and what they do, most times if you understand the framings of the organizations they lead, you'll then know
Yeah. Yeah.
how
It's
about it.
real. It's very, very real. And people need to look at even from the beginning, applying for a job in these organizations. And we're talking about schools here to find out if you will fit into the role, the role that they have they put up the job for, and the type of organization that you're getting into, the type of model or framing as you call it, to find out if that is the right place for you, that is the right environment for you. And then when they're inside that environment, what type of support do they get? Or it's just if it's the jungle or the arena, if it's the family, if people care more so about family structure, then that jungle environment would not be for them, the um or the temple, it might it might not be for them, so they need to find out what exactly are they getting into. But so and it lends itself to the same topic that we're talking about here with when we look at social and emotional skills in these places, do they help to build relationships? Do they help you to develop yourself as a person? Do they fill you with confidence? Is there conflict resolution um, as tactics in these places, or procedures that people can actually lean into to solve their
Yeah.
problems? If enough verbal communication is in this place that you understand exactly what is required of you and people who care about you, or empathy in this frame. I like those, Miguel.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. What I'm gonna do is put something up on there. I think I could
Yeah,
put something and look at it again because there's more to it than just what I
yeah.
um more to it than what I share.
It would be very good. I mean, it's really, really extraordinary because we love frames and we like to have analogies to lean into when we're talking about how do we do things? How do we um guide people towards an outcome, or we help them to become a part of our system, or even if we have systems that we can adopt, if we can get people, and I think,
So
yeah, go
you
on.
can see what I talked about. I've just put a
Yeah, yeah, it's clear.
yeah, so I talked about the metaphor. I just mentioned that. But then as you start to go down, you'll see if you're thinking of it more from a trying to describe the kind of organization rather than the metaphors. You have the structural, the political, the symbolic, and the human resource kind of pillars that are in it. And these describe the organization in that sense. But if you kind of pull down, you'll see, like, for example, the central concepts,
Mm-hmm.
rules, roles, goals, policies.
Yeah,
When you're in the factory, that's kind of like what you're going to hear a lot of.
yeah, yeah.
And everything is managed by rules, roles, goals, policies, those kind of things.
Yes, yes, yes.
When you're in a human resource, family type environment, people talk about relationships a lot. They
Yes,
talk about the needs of people and what skills they need in order to be successful. You get a lot of that, not roles or anything. Just that is where people focus. Like if there's a problem, people say maybe we have a skill shortage,
yes,
or here's what people need, or how do we mend this relationship? And that's coming from top down and through the system. You get into the jungle, you get the power,
mm,
competition. There's a lot of that. There's an intent to that, like classrooms to be distributed, and the principal might say, well, you guys have to figure it out, my God, you know what I mean?
yes.
And you left to figure it out, and who is the loudest person can win, you know what I mean? Or the person who is yeah, but if you look down, you can see the image of the leaderships, social architecture. That's the
Yes,
structural one. Empowerment, that's coming through the family, it makes sense. Advocacy, you have to argue for yourself, you have to fight. If you're not strong enough to in the political setup, the jungle, you're just gonna lose, not because
yes,
you're a bad person, but because that's how the game is set up. And the symbolic of the inspirational, that feeling, you might have a charismatic type leader.
yes,
But as you pull down, you can see where they also talk about the challenges. Because
ye-
sometimes you can have too much of one thing,
yes, yes, yes,
you know. But ultimately, you'll see the down at the bottom where the difference is. So you can use these as ideas to think about an organization to determine where people head to.
yes, yes.
The
I feel like
structural one is maybe using excellence as a standard. It has no real excellence is and a kind of non-human kind of piece to it.
quality.
We
Yeah,
just want the best. You're working in a factory building cars, we want the best cars. I don't care
yeah,
what cost that comes at for your time, your energy, your mental health. It's not like it's a bad way of thinking. It's just that that's how they process the thing. We're not
right.
spending time on that. We just want excellence here. Whatever
Yeah,
is the cost, we deal with that.
yeah,
Uh, you see, the other three talk about caring, justice, faith. These are desirable things that you want in an organization. One way I look at this is that it's very easy for an organ. I almost think of it as sometimes as a journey from one stage to another.
yep, yep, yep,
If
yep.
you think of it as a leader most leaders start here. rules. And as they get more confident, they start thinking about, now that I have the rules, can I now focus on the relationships, right?
Yes, yes.
And then they get here and they start realizing that maybe I need to delegate more, give people positions and let them have meetings and figure things out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then ultimately they get to this kind of like inspiration that they've formed, they have clarified in themselves what is their philosophy. So the framing sometimes are not static.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What you might experience from a leader is a journey that they're on, and you're now at that stage of that journey. Even organizations go through that. They start off, sometimes they start off, organizations start off from more from the inspirational side. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the political side gets in. I think
yeah,
of a good example like OpenAI, which started off. Next
yes.
minute, the head of OpenAI is fired, right? Even though it's a big, and you end up maybe at some point they say, we need to look at the rules because next time we can't let this happen, right?
Yeah.
And other startups don't have proper rules. Eventually they have to go. So it is a fluid piece. It's the skill, I believe, is knowing where you are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What is the leader saying? Is this about power? Is this about love? Is this about significance? Who's important?
Yeah, and what I see too, you could have an overlapping of them within one
Yeah, you will.
organization. You know,
You
there's
will.
a time
I
for a
think,
jungle, a time for the family. You know,
right. And
yeah,
and I think it's a more journey. I
yeah,
think in every scenario that we come across, you might see a little of everything.
yeah,
But there is a dominant one
yes,
that will
yes,
be the piece that stays with you. You know, when
yes,
you're in a workplace, you can quickly determine whether I'm going to have to fight with people here.
yes, yes.
You can quickly determine if is this a place where I can get empowerment or
Mm,
inspiration?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Or is it a clear peers that just interested only in the rules?
yeah,
What's your start time? What's your end time?
yeah,
Submit work by this time. This is the lesson plan, follow it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or
Very.
are you in a school where they say, here is a schema work, but we would prefer if you would think about how you'd like to deliver that, as long as at the end of the day, the kid gets a result and there's a way
Uh-huh.
in which you can check that you're doing it. But go for it, man. Have a go.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
can tell.
Yeah, yeah. So some of it might cause hypertension, and then others of it might just cause you to actually grow both in yourself as a person
Yeah,
and
I
people.
suppose maybe there are certain kind of organizations that has to be structural, right? For
Yes,
it to
yes,
work.
definitely. Yeah,
Another set that has to be symbolic, like, maybe, we could think of, so yeah.
yeah, that sounds good. Sounds splendidly good. It looks really good, and it's a good framework for us to reflect on to as we look at the topics we're discussing. It's very good. Um, Dr. Barker, we're gonna close off on that note because of the time.
Yeah, man.
But it's very good sharing, and I hope everybody gets something from this. The framework, and glad that Dr. Barker shared that, so you can find some more reading on it and look it up, and you can even implement it. That would be awesome if you implement it and comment right to us saying that, hey, I found this thing useful, and I implemented it in my.
There's a questionnaire that people can do, to know what their organization is more leaning towards.
Mm-hmm,
Because sometimes if you know what it's leaning towards, then you will know what are some of the pitfalls that can come,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and also know what are the kind of things you need to be doing in order to strengthen your organization.
Yeah,
Um, it's just, it's a framing. It's not a science. It's a theoretical understanding of organizations. There's always going to be overlap,
yeah,
but in some ways, I think it's a leadership journey or an organizational journey rather than a framing. So they go through different stages, and sometimes they go backwards, go forwards.
mm-hmm.
But you kind of can tell what is a dominant framing when you're in an organization. You can just feel it, what do you need to do to get by, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Because the people will model what they consider to be the important things. They
Yeah,
will say, they'll say it in a way that makes you know.
yeah. Well said. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, for viewing. Drop your comments. Let us know what you think about the show and the content. We wish you all the best. We'll see you next week again with another episode of EduTalk. Write to us at edusolutionsintl@gmail.com, or you can visit us online at edusolutionsintl.org. That's edusolutionsintl.org, or Google us, Education Solutions International. You'll find us.
Yeah.
Walk good,
Yeah.
everybody. Have a great last week of August, and we'll see you next
Yeah,
week.
yeah, man. And same from me. The other, I just think of one thing as well. Think of it from a classroom perspective. What kind of classroom? Is it a family? Is it a jungle? Is it a factory? Or is it a temple? What kind of classroom? And again, if you walk into a classroom, you can tell which of these is more important. How does the teacher celebrate certain rituals, practices for the kids? Our kids have to fight, advocate in the classroom, like to get the time from the teacher. Or is it a family space? Is it a space where just rules, follow the rules and you're fine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe one of the things we could do is maybe look at maybe putting together, I don't think anyone has done this, put a book together about reframing classrooms using this as the framing.
Words of wisdom. Yeah. All right.